so we're reaching the home stretch of Glorious Battle. There's now only about 7 days left, which means it's been up for 3 weeks. So this has been enough time for us all to get our hands in the event, test our limits in the event, how far we can push things, what we can do in the event. And I think we've reached the point now where we can have a real informed opinion of what this event is and where it should go, because in my opinion, in its current state, I really like the concept of the event, honestly. I've had a lot of fun with it, the strategizing, the politics. It's been very time consuming, but it is quite interesting and fun. But in its current state, this event cannot continue the way it is. There's some really glaring flaws, even for the players at the very top and the players at the very bottom. There are just things which make the event too difficult for both extremes, and therefore everyone in the middle to sustain this. So at the very top, the resource costs of like whale fighting in this is beyond anything we've ever seen in the game, and it's just totally unrealistic for anyone to ever do this even remotely frequent basis. And players at the very bottom, you can't even clear NPCs, so you can't do anything basically. So I'm just going to talk over what I would do for the next season, because this is inferior testing season. The losses don't seem very testy to me, but it is what it is. So this is what I would do to fix Glorious Battle, basically. So first of all, NPCs. NPCs need to become a walkover, because in its current state, they can only be done with the reinforcement dragon skill, basically, which is a ridiculous concept by itself, but I'm also getting that skill itself needs to be changed. I'll get into how I'd change that later. But if that goes, then NPCs need to be totally changed too. So I would dramatically decrease the difficulty of NPCs to the point where even like a 10 billion alliance by themselves could easily stroll through any NPCs in the map. I don't see the point in making them difficult. I don't see who wins there. Like here on our map, Tempest Keep, this group, they've been declaring like every day on this caravan stop. I think it starts at 800, maybe 600 troops, and they've only got to 26 in 3 weeks. So the amount of troops they've suicided on that for no gain whatsoever is just so... it just feels so bad to even watch. There's no reason why they shouldn't be allowed to push up just a little bit, maybe test PvP. The fact you're gating smaller groups of players from such a highly paid piece of content, because the reinforcement dragon skill will cost, 4, 5, 6,000 black diamonds probably. Plus you need the stats to back it up. You can't just have the skill itself. So even me, I'm a pretty big account. I'm one of the best accounts in a top 20 alliance in the game. I can't even clear level 3 NPCs. Reese is, I think, 19th in the world for power, and we needed someone else in our faction to clear them on another kingdom, because we had no one that could do past level 3s. We could do 2s and below, but not above that. And even at this point, the guy that could kill the NPCs, he's re-rolled his refinement, because he was spec'd into bow, and we literally can't kill these level 4 NPCs here, even if we wanted to, which is very ironic because we're, I think, the very likely winners of this group, and we're at a point where we can't even kill NPCs. So even with this glorious sea, in my mind, when people were going for it on the first day, we were like, yeah, just let them take it because we cannot kill the NPCs, so let's have them kill the NPCs for us, and that would be much more ideal for us long term. There was more to it than that, but that was a thought that crossed my mind at least, because we just couldn't kill the NPCs even if we wanted to. And that's a likely group winner, not able to kill NPCs. The fact that is a reality is... nah, that should not be the case. So NPCs need to be dramatically nerfed, they need to be made total walkovers, and that would make this game much healthier just from that alone. It would make it much easier for smaller players to get involved. I think the way NPCs were at the start of the event have really put a lot of people off just from all the troop losses, because that was awful. And yeah, We don't want to see that again, because that hasn't been fixed. Basically, all that was really fixed was players learn to not go and suicide their troops, and that isn't a fix of the game mode itself. Something that would affect the NPCs in their current state at least, but also PvP, is I think the combat system needs changing. So right now it works as first come first serve basically. So if you send to a location and you get there first, you will fight until you lose a battle, and then you'll be sent back. And everyone below you in the list will not fight until you get sent home. So what this causes quite often is middling players will basically never fight until a whale gets knocked out, which is only really possible by another whale, especially if they have the reinforcement skill on either side, which just causes middling players to get absolutely destroyed, and it's horrible to play for them, even in the stronger groups. I think that could be very easily fixed by turning it to the system we see in Army of the Dead, where if you have 100 people in a location and 100 is attacking it, you'll just have the first person hit the first person, but then it will scroll through. So one person does one wave, and then it will scroll through every single name, and then it will scroll back down from the top of the list when it gets through every name. I think that would be much healthier. It would let middling and smaller players get involved a bit easier, and it would also just let whales not dominate combat quite as much. They still inadvertently will, especially when everyone gets knocked out except the whale, but I do think it would work a lot better than the current system, because in the current system we've had even PvP fights where I think I had one yesterday, or maybe the day before, I went to like 90 kills in a row, and obviously a lot of them were just one troop or small marches, but it is kind of frustrating for the other 100 people that send, that they just can't do anything at all. They can't contribute whatsoever because everything gets killed before they can get involved themselves, and that's just a bit of a feel bad mechanic. It would feel better to players if it rotated through the list like Army of the Dead. I mean, Army of the Dead changed it for this same reason, I'm pretty sure, in its early days, and the same concepts apply here as why that change is needed, in my opinion. The next one is defeated rates need dramatically reducing, and that's a key point. Defeated rates, not casualty rates, defeated rates. Because right now, the biggest problem, in my experience at least, and in my alliance, is resources more than anything. Our bank has gone through billions and billions and billions of resources, and it isn't sustainable in any way. Even if this event is once every 3 or 4 months, we can't sustain the amount of resource demand this is needed. So that has to be amended. I mean, I can probably show some of my reports from yesterday. Scroll down. So here I hit this guy, and he has to heal 425,000 wounded tier 4. Like, that alone is hundreds of millions of resources. I had the same here. 400,000 straight tier 4. And even again earlier, again he has to heal 450,000 straight tier 4. It's too much. It's way too much. You don't see these sorts of healing bills in Treasure Seeker. We have Treasure Seeker going on right now, I guess, so I can probably show the comparison. I thought the casualties were going to be Treasure Seeker casualties. This is what Treasure Seeker casualties looks like, and this is spread across 3 people. I'm not seeing 400,000 tier 4s needing to be healed in Treasure Seeker. I think the big problem is resilience that's causing this. So the thing causing these huge defeated numbers is the resilience system, which is fair enough, that's part of the combat system they established, but I do think they could tweak the formula just a little bit to just have it still affect who wins the fight, but maybe not the defeated numbers as much. So you see here where I get absolutely battered. This is my first hit with a fresh march. You see I haven't hit in over 10 minutes. If you look at the timestamps. The battle record is a bit weird showing resilience, so on the normal stuff it is green is mine and red is his, but of resilience it's flipped, so red is actually my resilience and green is his. So I start here at 105 resilience, it's a 160 cap in defensive, and then I would have dropped 55 in movement. I think this city was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cities away from me, and you lose 1 resilience every 5 seconds you're marching, so you do drop a lot of resilience in movement. So I start there and win the fight handedly. Hard counter though, but then every single fight afterwards it just drops more and more, so it drops to 92 there. I do have the resilience dropped in wins talent, so I'm only dropping 92 to 79, but that just keeps dropping down and down and down. It goes to 66 there, and then it would have gone to 53 here, and then on this last one it would have been 40, and I get countered with all the tier 4 spears, and that is what causes the huge losses on my end, because that's his first march into the location, so he's at full resilience basically, whilst I am insanely low and are taking 160% damage. That doesn't need to be toned down just a bit in terms of the troops you lose and have to heal, in my opinion. So that is the third suggestion. Defeated rates dramatically reduced somehow, and that will be quite a complicated thing to achieve, I imagine, because of these potion depots, the great city, all the talents that increase and decrease casualty rates, this stuff that reduces your own, and then this which increases theirs. You got the same in the offensive tree. We can just stack it up higher and higher. But it is necessary, however complicated the maths will be to achieve that. Casualties closer in accordance with Treasure Seeker compared to what we have seen here. The third suggestion I have is that the transporting system and everything that goes around that needs a real overhaul, honestly. So right now, basically all transporting is really contributing is inflating people's contribution points. So if you want to do construction quests, like these, you need 5 million resources in there to start one of these, so you maybe need 15 to 30 million sent to a location across time to be able to fully maximize those construction quests. But you can see up here we have 1.27 billion. We have such an excess of them that they're just totally going to waste, really. And the other thing they get used for is you want to send them to fortresses, because you can deploy out of these and get lower resilience march times to be able to do more damage in PvP, basically. The problem with that is anyone can deploy with no way of restricting them from these fortresses. So if you have trolls or just people who aren't listening, all your sent resources will just be totally wasted. You see up here we have over 1,000 members in our faction playing Glorious Battle, and we've had multiple times where people have just not listened and just sent out of these fortresses and wasted the resources. And even if you can get hold of your players and try over and over to ping every Discord channel, every in-game chat to not do that, there's probably always going to be someone who doesn't listen, or just someone with an alt who isn't really a friend of your kingdom with an alt on your kingdom that can just totally screw you over. If they have marching bugles, they can just keep deploying in and out of the fortress and waste all the sent resources there. So I'd like to see the construction system a bit improved, where you can just do more, like keep improving stuff further, maybe for higher armament supply costs, because right now there's a hidden limit of 3 per quest. So you see there, reach the max limit. It's because we've done this 3 times. You could go above that potentially. I think right now it drops 30% in total, so 10% per quest. You could maybe do it 5% per quest and just let you do it more. That's potentially something, or just have it scale up a bit more. But the construction quest is just a bit brain dead and boring right now. There's not really much tactics to it. It's basically just spam all your militaries with the military regime for the bugle increase and the warhorn increase, and then there's not much else of use you can actually really do, because most of the defensive upgrades only affect NPCs. The main fix to this, you just need to be able to limit who can deploy out of fortresses somehow, and that's such a complicated thing to do that I think it would require multiple things to change, which I'll probably get into later as well. Maybe have it so the officials can have access to like a drop-down list of highest elimination points players or something like that, and then check who can deploy out of it, like it's the refinement screen where you can choose what you want to stop the rolls on. That's just an idea. Like if you could check like my name there, and then our second biggest account there, and then third biggest, so on and so on. There just has to be something to be able to restrict it, because right now it's another thing which is just a feel bad mechanic. You have someone deploy out your fortress for 80 million resources, and it's just like, oh, God's sake, we've just wasted so many transport marches, we've put all this effort into it, and it's basically entirely wasted. So transporting in its current state, and trading for that matter, doesn't do enough. I think the points in it are really high. Like I currently have 3rd in eliminations in my group, but I'm only 8th in elimination contribution. And people like this who are in 3rd, I'm pretty sure all their points are just trading. This guy like, definitely is all trading, and he's above me when I have over 40 million elimination points. So the points are really, really good. You can get really high in the rankings for them. But let's see the actual contribution of those transporting and trading marches match the points you get for them, because right now it just doesn't really do much in terms of helping your faction win the event. 4th suggestion, this is maybe one of the more important ones, is the reality of the dragon skill, the reinforcement dragon skill. So this is so oppressive in this event. You see in like most whale combat, everyone will have this skill. It's so OP. There's been a bit more like here. I'm sending mixed because of what they were sending. They were sending spear front and in front, so I wanted to cover both because I sent full cav to counter this guy's full imp at the time, and I got smacked into this, so you gotta have a bit of counterplay there. But sending full tier 4 of one line will give you 60,000 phantom troops, and if you have less than 60,000 defeated, you will effectively have 0 defeated, and that's how you see people going in there. The huge kill streaks against players, against NPCs, that effectively breaks the event. The problem is I don't want to see the dragon skill itself nerfed, because in PvP it is good obviously, but if you change how it works it will be made really bad, and I don't like retroactively nerfing paid content if people have gone out of their way to spend for it, including me, so maybe I'm biased here. But I think the easiest fix here is just remove dragons from the event. We've seen precedent for that with Siege of Winterfell, where it's just single marches with commanders and troops, and there's just no dragons involved whatsoever. Why can't we do that for Glorious Battle too? Because that would totally solve the reinforcement skill problem, and then you can rebalance the rest of the game mode accordingly. So you could change NPCs, because obviously NPCs without that skill are impossible, so they would have to be changed, and PvP would be a lot less oppressive. It would cause whales to have a bit less of an advantage in PvP, and I think generally for the health of the event that would be much better than how it is with having dragons involved as it currently is. And then what else? I think rewards. A lot of people you'll hear say the rewards aren't worth it. I think the rewards are worth it. The problem is the cost to get them is too high. So I think the fix to that is making the cost lower rather than making the rewards better. because all these SS tokens is very, very good. Like free, all these glory raffle tokens, that will go a long way in the raffle system up here. So I do think the rewards are pretty damn good and don't need changing necessarily. It's what I said earlier with the defeated rates. They're way too high. People have to heal and retrain way too many troops to be able to get these higher rewards at least. So lower the defeated rates and everyone will be happy with the rewards. And then the last one, which plays into a bit what I said before with the fortresses, is the leaders need more control in this event, because too many things just go unregulated. Like anyone can send any of your armament supplies wherever they want. You can't restrict that whatsoever. People can deploy out of any of your fortresses. You can't restrict that whatsoever. Any of the officials in your group can send declarations of war whenever they want. You can't restrict it at all. And that's caused a lot of issues for a lot of people throughout the event, and it's very, very frustrating to play with. The best way I think this can be fixed, honestly, is keeping this as the same system, but instead of 4 or 5 kingdoms and a faction, making it 1 kingdom per faction, because that would allow you to communicate much easier with everyone in your faction. It would eliminate the officials in the other kingdoms doing stuff you don't want them to, with declares that like reset when you're not on, stuff like that. Because if it's just the King's Landing holders of your kingdom, you're gonna trust those people more likely than not, at least. Maybe you're in the state of an invasion, they can get totally ruined through that, I guess, but that's just the reality of a game. I don't think you can really change an event to counteract that reality. And I say this as well as someone who has no reason to even be salty at the fact that there are multiple kingdoms in a faction this season. So in our faction we have AOT, who recently moved to K253 here, and Balor here is the only person in our faction who could clear level 3 or above NPCs. Without him we literally wouldn't be able to play the event. So it's really played into our favour, the current system with this season, because we would not be able to be as successful as we have been without them. But long term, I'm not sure it is healthy for the event to be doing it this way. Because I've heard, in my previous video on this, I said something similar, where I think it'll be better as 1 kingdom, and people said, well, what about us smaller kingdoms where we don't have anyone that can clear the NPCs? Where I think the fix to that is making the NPCs easier, in my opinion, rather than widening your nets to try and get a whale, basically. Because if you have to try and high roll a whale in matchmaking, is the system of the event really good when you're trying to just throw the dice and get lucky? I don't think it is. So 1 kingdom rather than 4 or 5 would be better, in my opinion, long term, just because you could trust the decision making and control the decision making a lot better. And then they in power need to be given more ways of controlling what people do. So say when you put up a transport command, you should be able to put up a limit of how much you want transport there. So if I put up, say, this transport command, it would just be 5 hours of send resources, send resources, send resources. Well, maybe you only want 5 million sent there so you can start a construction quest. So let them put up a transport command with a 10 million limit, say, and then the transport command disappears. But I think overall, there is the foundation for a very good event here. I just hope they don't sit on their hands and not change it, because even the biggest players for next season, I don't think can keep it up, and they just won't even try to the point they have this season. So my alliance, my kingdom, we're pushing for the win in this season because we've committed so hard to it. But if we get in a similar situation next season and it comes around like quicker than you'd expect, we can't do this again. We just don't have the resources to go through this with the same defeated rates once more. So NPCs need to become rollovers, they need to be easy for everyone to kill, they should not be something that limits progress in any way. The focus should be on PvP, on the politics that come from that, because the most intrigue I found in this event is the politics of it. So in our group here, we came to an agreement here with Scarlet to not hit them before we got into the middle, and we then learned they were basically talking with everyone on the map to try and declare on us like 2, 3, 4 times at once, and then they broke our agreement and declared on us with Frost up here at the same time, and that sort of lit a fire under our asses, and now we've politics with Purple to double declare on them, and that we're now taking everything of theirs, and that really does just add something, because it's not brain dead like events like Army of the Dead. It just adds that bit of dynamism, that bit of personality to it, I guess, which does make it just more interesting, more engaging. And that comes from the players, that doesn't come from NPCs. So let people get past the NPCs as soon as possible, and let people interact with the other players on the map, because that is where the fun is. And it isn't just from fighting, it's more than that. It's all the politics surrounding it. And then combat system, change it to the Army of the Dead system, where it scrolls through the list, and you fight once until it scrolls all the way through, and then it resets the list, and you start one again. Defeated rates need dramatically reducing. Dramatically. Tail of the numbers closer towards Treasure Seeker, despite the resilience stuff. Fiddle with the numbers, just dramatically tone down those defeated numbers so people aren't having to heal 400k tier 4s every time they send out a full deployment. Transporting system and trading needs to be more useful on the map. It needs to be able to help your faction win a bit more than it currently is, through controlling of who can deploy out of fortresses, or making the construction system a bit more dynamic, a bit more useful, a bit less limited with its free max on construction quests cap that is currently in the game. Reinforcement skill is OP, it needs fixing. Fix it by removing dragons from the event. You therefore keep the integrity of its balance in live PvP and stuff like that, but you make the event more healthy by just removing it, like we see in Siege of Winterfell where there's no dragons whatsoever. Keep the rewards as they are, they're fine as it is, just make them a little less punishing to be gone by reducing the defeated rates, and change it to a one kingdom system. Obviously still have matchmaking, match it by kingdom power like KBK, but don't make it so there are so many roadblocks to having things function as you want. Make it one kingdom and give those kingdom officials more power, so let them interact with the transport commands and stuff like that more. I think that is how I would change, fix, however you want to put it, Glorious Battle moving forwards, moving out of this testing season, so everyone can enjoy it moving forwards.